Robert E. Lee might have been a dick, but some of his descendants aren't. In fact, one of his descendants actually decided to speak truth to power during the MTV Music Awards, and as a result, he's facing so much criticism from the parishioners at the church that he works at that he decided to step down. Now, this is Reverend Robert Wright Lee IV, and if you can recall, and if you watch the MTV Music Awards, he went up on stage with Heather Heyer's mother. Heather Heyer was the victim in that hate rally where a white supremacist decided to run a bunch of counter protesters over. Now, during that speech, here's what the pastor had to say. He said, "We have made my ancestor an idol of white supremacy, racism, and hate. As a pastor, it is my moral duty to speak out against racism, America's original sin. Today, I call on all of us with privilege and power to answer God's call to confront racism head on. We can find inspiration in the Black Lives Matter movement, the women who marched in the Women's March in January, and especially Heather Heyer, who died fighting for her beliefs in Charlottesville." Apparently, some of his parishioners absolutely hated that speech and have been criticizing him vehemently ever since. And as a result, he has decided to step down from that church. He did release a statement about this, and it reads as follows: "My presence at the church as a descendant of Robert E. Lee and an outspoken opponent of white supremacy had already attracted attention. But with my appearance on MTV, the media's focus on my church reached an all-time high." And he continued to say, "A fraction of church members were concerned about my speech and that I lifted up Black Lives Matter movement, the Women's March, and Heather Heyer as examples of racial justice work. The church's reaction was deeply hurtful to me." So he says that he regrets that all his speaking out led to this, but he's incredible. You know, the fact that, look, I wish that he didn't step down, because as he says, it's a fraction of his church. And if he is, you know, the pastor at that church, there are people who look up to him, and he's an important voice. But with that said, I give him a lot of credit for sticking to his guns and standing by what he said.
So Robert Lee was, the original Robert E. Lee was a complicated character, but he did lead the armies of the Confederacy in high treason against the United States, and their job was to protect slavery. And that was the state right that they were fighting for. So his son, or I mean his descendant here, is in a sense not as complicated. He's just on the right side. And it's actually not, I fail to see how controversial it is, except for the fact that I think he's actually, I'm gonna be much harsher than Anna. His parishioners are dicks, I mean, in your language, okay? He said a faction of the church is that way. No. If you have a small percentage of the church who are just big loudmouths, the rest of the leaders of the church will put that down, and they'll say, hey guys, look, he's trying to do the right thing. No, they're rebelling against this pastor because he's against white supremacy. Let that sink in for a second.
Yep.
So now you might, even if you were a Trump voter and you hate Black Lives Matter, first of all, educate yourself. I mean, Black Lives Matter says our lives should matter as well. It seems like they don't, and here's our facts and statistics about how we're disproportionately targeted. It's not to try to get any more rights than any other people. So if you believe that you're wrong, you're just flat out wrong.
I know, Cenk, but you're trying to reason with white supremacists. They don't dislike Black Lives Matter because they were misled into believing it's like some terrorist organization. They don't believe Black Lives Matter. It's that simple, right?
So what are the other things you're against? Are you against him supporting Heather Heyer, who was murdered by a neo-Nazi? Women's March, okay, so they don't agree with you politically, I presume. But so there's some women marching, is that also a problem? So, no, you're bad people. And he had this guy, Robert Wright Lee IV had to say, for this I offer my heartfelt apology. I understand my views could be considered to be controversial.
Yeah,
they're not that controversial. Yeah. And so just because Fox News doesn't like them, so your parishioners, they're bad people. They are. There was enough of them to want to kick you out, and they kicked you out because you're against white supremacy. That's horrific. And these are the people pretending to be for Jesus Christ, who said take everyone in, treat everyone the same, who gave the Sermon on the Mount. You people are disgusting. You never read the Bible. Or you read the Bible and you're like, oh, the Old Testament stuff where we hate other people. I love that part. Sermon on the Mount, it's optional, okay? Turn the other cheek, the Prince of Peace, all that stuff. Who cares? That was just Jesus being weak, okay? But these were probably for the death penalty, even though Jesus got the death penalty, right? Just then, okay, then don't call yourselves Christian. I don't know, make yourselves Satanists or something. Just say, yeah, we're the church of racism and be in favor of that. But you guys are dicks, and because your pastor happened to be a decent person, you drove him out of your community.
So the reason why I give him a lot of credit, even though I wish he hadn't apologized because he had nothing to apologize for, is because oftentimes people make excuses for those who are hateful because they say, well, they're a product of their environment. And think about
yes, great point.
Think about the fact that he's a descendant of someone who fought tooth and nail to maintain slavery in the United States. He was preaching at a church where some portion of the parishioners believe in this type of hatred. And he still was an independent thinker and knew right from wrong and spoke truth to power. Like, to me, that says a lot about someone, and that's the reason why I give him credit.
And we're not equivalent, okay? I know what those people, those hateful people in that church will say. What? So, okay, you say we hate black people, but you hate white people? No, we don't. Okay, that's preposterous. No one thinks that white lives shouldn't matter. No one thinks that cops should randomly shoot unarmed white people. That's insane. No one thinks that men shouldn't have rights. Only women should have rights. The only thing that we ask for is equal rights for every person, no matter what their race or religion is. That's supposed to be the most fundamental part of our Constitution and our country. And you say, no, if you're for that, you're not allowed to be my reverend because you're preaching love and I'm filled with hatred. Just say it, just admit it, okay? Stop hiding behind whatever the hell you're hiding. I don't even know what you're even hiding behind. I mean, you just fired this guy basically and drove him out of town. I'm glad you didn't tar and feather him while you were at it because he doesn't believe in white supremacy. If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Young Turks membership. TYTnetwork.com/join.